What's up, everybody? Welcome into a Saturday morning live, breaking down a full day of cross-examination by Alan Jackson, witness being Yuri Bukhenik, and so much happened. So many important factors, so many important things came out, and it was actually really amazing to watch an attorney who had some foresight, was able to adapt. I think having multiple days to cross-examine this witness helped immensely. And we have an idea of where they're going to continue to go. And I have a lot of thoughts on both sides considering calling Brian Higgins in the future, because I can see some major reasons why they might feel like they have to call him now, but also some very serious risks if you are the person to put him on the stand. So make sure you guys hit the like button. Make sure you're ready to have a good weekend. Let's start it here with this video. So we're back with the man, the myth, the legend, Yuri Bukhenik, immigrant, public school kid, military guy serving our country, and now one of Massachusetts' finest. He is on the stand again. And I thought it was really funny, actually, because you guys were saying, do you think he's going to say he doesn't understand it because English is his second language? I was like, nah, I don't think he's going to try to pull that. I don't think that's something that's going to happen here. And of course, you guys are right. You guys are right. You had the feel on it. And he did that at some point today. But I felt like Jackson was extremely patient, well rested. Some of you guys felt like he seemed tired some of the other days. He did not seem tired yesterday. He seemed like he knew he was going to have all day. He knew he wasn't going to finish. He didn't want to finish necessarily, which sometimes as a lawyer, that feels good because you can really slowly go through. By the way, my voice is shot because Maverick had 2 flag football games last night. So a lot of screaming. And that sometimes can be really good for a lawyer's psyche. I have to take my time. Nobody's going to rush me. It's going to take all day. By the way, nobody is going to tell Jackson he can't take 5 days with Yuri Bukhenik if he wants to. This is now their new lead investigator. This is their king. Look, he's the captain now. This is the guy who's going to answer all the questions. This is the guy who's going to answer the Proctor questions. Okay. The Higgins questions. Okay. There's no way that you can really limit what he's going to do on this case. This is potentially the most important witness. And he battled a ton with Jackson the first day and a ton this morning, and we're going to get into some of that. But eventually I felt like the witness wore down because he's probably not used to being on the stand for 2, 3, 4 days of testimony. The lawyers are used to being in the courtroom for days and days and days, and you go to bed and you wake up and you do it again and you go to bed and you wake up and you put the suit on and you get to court and you go to bed and you get up and you put the suit on and you go to court. A lot more than witnesses are. So we're going to get into the testimony now. And Yuri Bukhenik said something like, he's waiting for the evidence to suggest what happened. And Jackson was like, interesting you should say that. And you can also tell with Jackson, and what you should do as a lawyer is listen to the answer. Don't just ask your next question, because lawyers should be very prepared. But you don't just want to ask your next question without listening to the answer. And he does a great job at that.
Those suggestions, correct? Yes or no?
We have theories.
Another term for a theory is an assumption or presumption, correct?
I guess in some respect you can say that,
Okay.
but I'm
So
not
test.
I'm not going to argue about semantics here.
Well, you'll agree that
Really? He's not going to argue about semantics. Okay.
words matter, right? I mean, you're testifying, so words do matter.
Words do matter. That's important.
So
And we all know we're big fans of that here. Words matter. Definitions of those words matter. And now we're hearing that come out in multiple trials, and I love it. Mary is up at 5:30 in the morning. Tell me what time it is where you are, where you're watching. My voice makes it sound like it's much earlier here, right? It sounds like I just rolled out of bed, but I've done a ton this morning already. Maverick got up early, so we hung out and we did a bunch of things. I always got to get stuff done Saturday morning. Brooke and Whitney sleep in. Maverick sometimes does. So I'm almost always up by myself, early in the morning. But tell me what time it is where you guys are.
Working off of your, as you put it, your theory, you theorized that there was an impact spot at 34 Ferry, correct?
Based on the statement I hit him, I assumed that Mr. O'Keefe was impacted with something. Initial hours of the investigation, we had those statements, I hit him. We had the statements that, oh my God, did I hit him? So utilizing that information with the evidence at that point that we had was a broken cocktail glass. So a theory would be, why is the cocktail glass broken? Because it came into contact with the victim. So that's why my information communicated to the ME's office was a possible domestic involving a glass strike to the victim. As a result, we had to go and see the victim's body and the injuries. So Mr. O'Keefe's injuries presented a certain way, and we learned more information. So the more information that comes in, the more information that we are able to corroborate statements and collect evidence that further corroborates other information is helpful in the investigation. That's how investigations develop. If we knew everything we knew from day one, there wouldn't be a process of developing investigation.
So the answer to my question.
And if Jackson, a couple times he gets annoyed because Bukhenik goes all over the place with these answers. But if you listen to him, anytime a cop, I don't care where they work, anytime a cop in this trial is going to sit in that chair and explain proper police procedure or investigation, I'm going to sit there and intently listen. Say, yes, please explain that. Explain how you thought it could have been a cocktail glass. You thought I hit him could have meant a lot of things, right? Not just with the car. And when you went and look at his injuries and you see cuts and eggs and whatever, however you want to describe it, could have been a lot of things. You clearly did not immediately go to car when you saw his injuries. And if you knew it was a car that early on, you would have done things completely different. You didn't take that as a confession. You didn't take that as Karen Reed saying, I hit John O'Keefe with my car. You didn't take it like that. So why should this jury? And they should say, all the evidence is pointing in this direction. Fine. We need somebody to explain to us how all of this fits together for a car hitting him.
Question, Sergeant, is you were working off of a theory, correct? Yes or no?
We were working off a report of an injured male party, and then we developed the information, collected the evidence, and developed the investigation.
You know what the word theory means?
I'm sorry, English is like a third language for me. So if you can,
like, so cringy. How do you not cringe when he says that? First off, if you're going to do that, if that's going to be your play as a witness, which every single human being uses whatever their experience is sometimes to as a crutch. Sometimes they use it as an advantage. Sometimes they use it in a conversation, in a fight, in an argument, to get a job, to, get somebody to like them, whatever it may be, right? People use stuff from their background all the time. He's not the only person to do something like this. But to say this and to use it for the word theory, not the right moment, Mr. Bukhenik. Not the right moment. There are going to be a lot of little droppings here of what's he trying to pull if I'm a juror. What is he trying to pull? Because this does not seem honest or genuine to me, and that was one of them. Especially when he's going to use all sorts of words later that are much more difficult to define in the English language. But I thought that was a swing and a miss for him, and you guys called it. And Jackson deals with it as only Jackson can, and I get it. Dirty Al Green, that's funny. I saw it too. A bunch of buddies sent that to me because we played that when we were kids. Jackson handles it harshly, right? Like with sarcasm, with power, with control. Some people aren't going to like that. Some jurors aren't going to like that. I personally liked it. If there are jurors with my personality disposition, they're going to like that. But he's not just going to let stuff like that slide. He's going to highlight it. So when you do something like that as a witness, you better be ready to talk about it.
I'm sorry, English is like a third language for me. So if you can bring up the Webster's Dictionary, I can read it out.
You want me to pull up the Webster's Dictionary? You want to take a break real quick and pull up the Webster's Dictionary to define a word that you used in an answer about 40 seconds ago? We're working off of a theory, quote unquote. You said it, not me. You want me to go get a dictionary so we can figure out the jurors what that word means?
Objection.
All right, sustain.
This literally sounds like this sounds like me in my high school class if I was in an argument with a classmate. It's like, seriously, bro? A dictionary, like you don't know what theory means? Get the dictionary out so we can all look at it together, bro. You just said theory. That's what it sounded like. That's like what it sounds like to me. like a high school class, and one guy has another guy literally in the corner and he's just beating him down with his words. That's what it sounds like. And I get it why some people might not like that. I get it. He is not going to let that slide. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me what you think in the chat, because Jackson was not happy when he tried to pull that.
Okay, let's move along, please.
And the judge didn't yell at Jackson for that. She's like, okay, let's move along. Objection sustained. Everybody in that courtroom, including Hank Brennan, including Judge Cannoni, to me, nobody liked that. Everybody was like, oh, is he seriously doing that? That's what I felt. Because we've seen them stand up and get upset. We've seen her say, Mr. Jackson, enough with the comments. We've seen stuff like that. She didn't say it there, though. She didn't say it there.
You would agree with me, Sergeant Bukhenik, that if your theory was that there was an impact, the site of that impact would be incredibly important, correct?
Very important, yes.
And on February 10th, you went out to the scene and you indicate that you found 6 pieces of black, clear, and red plastic material and 14 pieces of glass material and some other plastic material as well, correct?
Yes.
You didn't photograph it? Is that
No,
right?
I did not.
You didn't do any plotting with cross coordinates, which would have been easy to do to determine exactly where each piece was found, correct?
It would not be easy for me. I don't know how to do that.
Which again, the playing dumb here also didn't come off well. If I was him, I'd be like, we never do that. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, right? But I'd give a better answer than, I don't know how to do that, because like, then why are you the one collecting the evidence? Why don't you call CERT, who clearly knows how to do it, who documented everything, who didn't find any of this stuff, who did a very thorough search themselves? Why didn't you call them to do it? Because they know how to do it. Brian, I agree with you. He said both. Bukhenik said both. I hit him, and oh my gosh, did I hit him? That was like there are definitely some moments of honesty with Bukhenik. There are moments of honesty that I think really help the defense throughout his cross-examination. Marquetta, is recross for things that only come up in redirect, or could they bring up things you missed in cross only? So cross on a witness like this is going to be very broad. It's supposed to be limited to what happens on direct, but it's very broad because they talked about the whole case and this is the new lead investigator. But when you get to redirect and recross, much more limited. Yes, exactly like you said it. You can't bring up stuff you forgot that they didn't bring up on redirect.
You never learned how to plot cross coordinates?
I don't have the tools to GPS coordinate an item.
You don't have the tools? Does CERT have the tools? Yuri's Webster Dictionary. Perfect time to bring this up. Thanks for gifting the membership. And I'm sorry I couldn't do it last night. I had the football games, but I did some recordings. If you wanted to hang out with me and get in the chat, you had your chance on the Lori Vallow and Diddy cases. If you guys are watching those, let me know. I know most people are fully into the Karen Reed case. We're not stopping that. Just decided to trickle some other stuff out there while I knew I wasn't going to be available to do this recap yesterday.
2 points that are stable. You know what cross coordinates are? Take 2 points that are stable. Like, for instance, I don't know, let's pick something. Like a flagpole that doesn't move. And you draw a line, pull the string directly over the item that you find. Then you take another stable item that's perpendicular to that. Pull that straight, put it down. That's exactly, you measure the distance between the two. That's exactly where that item, where those two strings cross, that's exactly where that item's found. That's cross coordinates, isn't it? Objection.
Sustained.
You ever heard of that? Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know what cross coordinates are?
No.
Do you know how to plot cross coordinates?
You just demonstrated it to me.
Does that sound reasonable and easy?
What you explained sounds easy, yes.
And you didn't do that.
And nobody has ever said this to you before in your entire career? Military police, law enforcement officer, detective, I think he said, for 10 years? Nobody has ever given you that explanation before, including CERT, who has testified. I have gotten that explanation before from CERT. Not quite exactly like that, but Victor Perez said, my dad is a retired NYPD. I've shown him parts of this case, and he's of the opinion that this investigation would have been junk in his day. Says a lot given his era. It's funny. I had a buddy text me last night. I'm never into these cases, but this Reed case is looking more and more like a cover-up. My wife is super into it and dragged me in. By the way, his wife is a Fed. So in Tampa, not there, but it's so interesting to me, right? People looking at this case, there's not anybody that's like Karen Reed is guilty. I think she did it. She's a horrible person. I think she admitted it. I will only even consider continuing to talk to you about this case if you agree there are issues with the investigation. I will agree that there are things she said that are bad. There are things in this case that look bad. The hard part for me, I'm totally open to the Commonwealth bringing a great accident reconstructionist and explaining exactly how this works with maybe models and demonstrations and measurements. Without that, I just find it almost impossible that he was hit with a car based on ARCA. But that's from the first trial. So we're staying open from the second trial. But you have to admit issues in this investigation, or you have to admit you're not looking at this case clearly. I am firmly there. Yuri Bukhenik has just made that even more apparent.
Yeah.
I did not.
You also didn't, by the way, you had your cell phone when you went out there on February 10th, correct?
I would assume so, yes.
Your cell phone has a camera built into it, correct?
Yes, it does.
You indicated on direct examination you didn't think it was necessary to call out a forensic photographer to photograph and photo document where these items were found. Is that right?
That's right.
But you could have pulled your cell phone out and taken photographs of them, right?
I guess I could have, yes.
But you didn't do any coordinates and you didn't take any photos.
I did not know.
Can you show us a report that memorializes where you supposedly recovered these items?
Yes, the report you showed me, number 83, that documents that they were all recovered at 34 Fairview Road.
Right. So that's correct. There's a report after the fact that establishes that they were recovered generally at 34 Fairview Road on February 10th. But is there a report that describes exactly where on the property at 34 Fairview or off the property at 34 Fairview these 20 items were found?
Of course, the documentation was not what it should have been, very clearly. He also gets him to admit, you had your cell phone. Your cell phone's got a camera on it, right? You didn't take any pictures. And Bukhenik said, I guess I could have. At least he admits that that was a problem and that he should have done it. Maybe adding a little credibility, right? Because there are so many cops in this case that were like, no, I didn't need to take a picture of my cell phone. We never do that. It's like, I thought you were trying to find the truth. I thought you're trying to prove a case here beyond a reasonable doubt. Why would you not want to take a picture with your cell phone? I don't understand that. And I actually think he gave a good answer for that. Maybe I should have, which is correct. You definitely should have. Then we get into some of the Proctor conversation. Whose writing is on the bag? And this, while we gave Yuri Bukhenik a little, maybe we added a little credibility, it goes tumbling down the mountain when he tries to argue about stupid things that don't matter. If I'm prepping a witness, especially a cop or an expert, don't argue about stupid things that don't matter. If Proctor filled out the bag, that doesn't matter. If Proctor signed the search warrant, that doesn't matter. Or the affidavit. We don't care. We know he's all over this case. We're still calling you. We're pretending it doesn't exist. But if you say this wasn't his writing, and you say he didn't do this, and you say he didn't do that, so then your answer has to become, actually, I don't know who I gave it to, but it was a trusted member with honor and integrity that was on the force. It's like, that sounds worse. That sounds worse. Especially when Jackson's literally going to compare handwriting to where it's going to be obvious to the jurors, this was Proctor. Proctor did this.
Clear plastic.
And that's all it says about the description, correct?
Yes.
And it indicates location where collected. And there's several lines that are available to fill in, correct?
Correct.
On that first line, what does that read?
34 Fairview Road, Canton, MA.
And that's it, correct?
That's all that was put, yes.
And you didn't fill this bag out, did you?
No, I did not.
Who did?
I do not know.
Who did?
Jackson, like a parent who did say his name. Who filled it out? It wasn't you, right? So who was it? Who did? It's like very dramatic.
I don't know.
You don't recognize the handwriting?
No, I do not.
You don't recognize the handwriting of your partner and subordinate, Michael Proctor?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are you aware that?
Does not sound like it's from a movie. It sounds like it's like from Clue or something. You don't recognize your own partner's handwriting?
Michael Proctor filled this out?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you with Michael Proctor when this was bagged?
No, I was not. I was by myself.
Did you give the items of evidence to Michael Proctor to bag?
No, I did not.
Who did you give it to bag?
I bagged it myself.
Whose handwriting is that?
I do not know.
If you bagged it yourself, why didn't
How does that make any sense? And again, this isn't even important. This isn't even, you're losing on things that aren't important, Yuri Bukhenik. Yeah, it was Proctor. We did it together. And move on. Like you already said 50 other times. Am I missing something? Was there something more important about this specific bag? Azam's like, time out. I know theory. You know a lot of words though, Azam. To be fair, not a fair comparison, I don't think.
you fill out the evidence envelope?
I bagged it and turned it over, and I told him exactly where it was and what time. So someone else wrote the information.
You just said,
And by the way, Jackson is listening again because the first thing I picked up on is he said, I told him. It's like, who'd you tell then? Who'd you tell? Because once again, if you have no clue where any of this evidence went or how it was bagged or who was doing anything, which is what he's going to try to go with, that's bad too. So if you're Alan Jackson, you've put yourself in a position where almost any answer he gives is going to be good. Because he's either going to say Proctor or he's going to say, I don't know. And either one of those is not good for the investigation because we know Proctor's the cancer and we know, I don't know, I have no clue how this happened is negligence. Not how an investigation is supposed to go.
I then turned it over, and I told him exactly where it was and what time. So someone else wrote the information.
you just said, I bagged it and told him.
Turned it over.
No, sir. What you just said was, and told him.
And just to make sure Jackson's not quibbling with words, we'll listen to it again. Oh, look at the closed captions are not always correct, but even the closed caption says him. So let's listen to it again. Does he say I told him?
The evidence envelope.
I bagged it and turned it over, and I told him exactly where it was and what time. So someone else wrote the information.
You just said, I bagged it and told him.
Turned it over.
No, sir. What you just said was, I bagged it and turned it over to him. And you don't know who it is that you turned it over to? Who's the him?
Turned it over to them.
Who's
Them.
Okay.
Whoever wrote.
I guess that's reasonable. It could have been them. Turn it over to him or them. But even if you said them, who is them? Who are they?
Whoever wrote it.
So we're just in a circle here. We can turn the lights
Objection
up.
to the commentary.
So, Mr. Jackson, no comments, okay? Just
Understood.
questions.
I apologize. Ignore my last comment. You had items of evidence that you already described as being incredibly important, correct?
Those are your words. I actually changed. I said every piece of evidence is important.
Okay. Since this is part of every piece of evidence, you think this evidence was important.
Every piece of evidence is important.
So was this
It's the guy that doesn't want to argue semantics, by the way.
evidence important? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you had the evidence and turned it over to someone whom you don't know and can't identify. Is that what we understand?
It was a member of the Massachusetts State Police assigned to our office. It wasn't just a random person. I can't specifically identify who it was or who wrote on that bag. I know it was a trusted member of our unit and part of the investigative team.
How do you know it was a trusted member of your unit and a part of the investigative team if you can't tell these jurors who it was? How do you know that?
Because I wouldn't have turned it over to a random stranger.
Okay, so let's figure out the possibilities. Who are among those to whom you would have turned this stuff over? Who are among them?
By the way, a lot of times this happens in a deposition where like I can feel like a witness is lying and they'll be like, oh, I told lots of people about this. Okay, who? Like it was like a ton of people. Give me some names. And then they struggle to give you any names. It's like, if you can't give me 2 names, I don't think you told a lot of people about this. I don't think a lot of people can back you up. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people will back me up. Give me some names, right? It's like you start to feel the BS, your BS meter's going off, and you're like, okay, let's take this down the road and just look how reliable or credible you look at the end. And that's what it felt like Jackson was doing here, which is not an uncommon tactic by a lawyer, is when you feel like somebody's lying and they're being vague in general, you ask for specifics, you ask for details.
There was 4 troopers in the detective unit at that point assigned to homicide.
Let's name them. Who are they?
It was Trooper DeChico, Trooper Kakowski, Trooper Dunn, and Trooper Mike Proctor.
As you sit here today, do you believe or do you recall turning it over to Trooper Dunn?
Objection.
We're going to go through each person.
Everyone,
Well-
roll for it.
I'll allow this question.
First off, what's the objection? What's the objection there? I guess the objection could be asked and answered because he said he doesn't know who he gave it to. So if you go through specifics, his answer is going to be, I don't know. But in any trial, this would be allowed. And Judge Snow was like, you're going to go through all of them? It's like, yeah. She does it again with the text messages. She's like, yeah, I assume you're not going to have him read 60 pages. Jackson's like, I absolutely intend to. But the problem is her comment gives to the jury like there's something wrong with asking him to read 60 pages. Like he shouldn't do it, or he's going to be annoying the court, or he's going to be wasting time, which the court keeps saying, we're doing everything we can not to waste your time. That's why it's better for judges and lawyers. And she's had to tell Jackson a ton to stop doing this. Stop making comments in front of the jury. We don't know how the jury's going to take it. And if it's not evidence or appropriate argument, they shouldn't hear it from the judge or the lawyers.
Do you remember turning it over to Trooper Dunn?
No.
Do you remember turning it over to Trooper Pikowski?
No.
Do you remember turning it over to Trooper DeChico?
No.
Do you remember turning it over to Michael Proctor?
No.
So it might have been just a random stranger.
That's a ridiculous suggestion.
It is kind of ridiculous, but it's like, that's where I feel like your answer's going. Who did you turn it over to? Somebody very trusted there. Well, who was trusted there? These 4 people. Well, do you remember giving it to any of these 4 people? No. So it could have been an untrusted person or somebody else. I agree. It is ridiculous. Sir, that's your answer, not mine. I thought that was funny. Okay. Okay. So they collected the piece of evidence. They knew it was in the same general area as where they found the other pieces. Somebody sent me something that I thought was really interesting. I have no clue if it's true, real, or accurate, but they were like, here are all the pieces CERT found, and they're all in one spot of the taillight. Here are all the pieces Proctor found, and they're all one part of the taillight. Here's what Bukhenik found, and it's one part. It's not like one little piece Proctor found here, one little piece here, and they all mishmash together. No clue if it's true. It would be very interesting if that was true. I would feel like the defense would point that out if it was true. And it made me think, not that I don't trust you guys when you send me stuff, but it's almost like I don't trust it till I verify it. Unlike them, they're like, we trust it, but then we verify it. He admits Proctor found taillight pieces much later. Berkowitz driving in the rain outside, not the best visibility, sees a red piece, and shocker. He shows him another evidence bag with the same handwriting, and it actually says Proctor on it. He didn't excavate. He allowed the natural recession of the snow. Should we get the dictionary out for what that means? Then we get to Brian Higgins' discussion. Got his phone. Was it an actual extraction or was it what Higgins gave to you? He refuses to agree that the text messages between Higgins and Reed were flirtatious, which once again, why lie about that? That one I actually come to understand why maybe you wouldn't want to admit to with how Jackson puts it all together, but we'll wait on that. The judge asking in front of the jury, you're not going to have him read all these pages of text. Yes, he does. And I listened to it on 3+ times speed. It was a wild ride. Nothing hugely different from the first case, but absolutely flirtatious. Explain to me what you got from Brian Higgins' text with Karen Reed. What was your vibe of the text? Okay, so explain that to me. From my perspective, it came off like flirtatious and a guy who wants his buddy's girl and never thought he had a chance, now feels like he has a chance and wants to partake. That's what it seems like to me. And no, I'm not going to read all the texts. But the first question Jackson asks after reading all these texts, because he just got Bukhenik to say, or he didn't get him to say, Bukhenik just said they weren't flirtatious, is, those were flirtatious, right? And we're going to listen to that.
Would you, let me ask, I'm going to ask you the same question again. Would you consider those text messages as you reviewed them when you received them from Brian Higgins as being flirtatious or romantic in nature?
I would not categorize them to that extent. Certain parts of it might be, but the total conversation, if you want my opinion, I can provide you with it.
Was there some flirtation?
If you want my opinion, that's a bit of a threat, right? And whenever there's a witness on the stand saying things like that, you as a lawyer have to be careful and make your decision. Are you going to open that door and let him give you your opinion? And if it's a good witness who is going to be able to slam your client, maybe you avoid it and say, no, we don't care about your opinions. We just want you to testify about the facts of what you saw and heard and whatever. But when it's a witness like this, where I think Jackson's feeling himself a little bit at this point, I think maybe reading the text messages wore Yuri Bukhenik down a bit. Jackson takes the bait and lets him give his opinion.
In the text messages that you noted?
There are terms that I used. You're hot, witty, stuff like that. You know, talking about banging and hooking up.
What word would you use to describe them if not flirtatious?
The totality of the conversation?
Sure. Let's start there.
My opinion is that it's a angry girlfriend trying to set up a hookup to her John.
To her jump?
To her John.
To her John.
Yeah.
Would you?
He sees it as just Karen Reed. She's angry and wants to hurt John. That's what he sees it as. That's his opinion. That helps to me. That helps if I'm the jury. It's like, that's what you got from that? I can't, the chat's flying, so I can't really read all of your guys' opinions, but I wish I could to see how many people said that's what they saw from those texts.
You consider the responses from Brian Higgins to be flirtatious in nature?
There are conversation parts that are enticing, maybe a little of advances, but the totality of, to put a label on the whole thing, my opinion is that she's trying to get revenge.
Get revenge?
Yes, get revenge.
On John?
Yeah.
For what happened on New Year's Eve?
Yes.
Okay. When you say...
That was an interesting question by Jackson. I would not have asked it. A lot of people asked, did that open the door? I don't think they dug into it enough. And Bukhenik brought up revenge. If I was Jackson, I would have been like, maybe I would have said revenge from things that had happened in the past. I would have been a little bit more vague because that could have been Bella's mom or who she thought he was sleeping with or whatever. That could have been anything, right? To say New Year's Eve, we'll see. I think that's a red herring. I don't think Brendan's going to be, I think that'd be foolish for Brendan to go down that road and try to use Aruba and stuff. But from my perspective, potentially could have opened the door. I could see how Judge Cannoni may think it opened the door, but it was very quick. They move on. It's Bukhenik's theory that this is some kind of revenge. It was not Jackson that wanted to bring it up, but he did technically specifically state New Year's.
Revenge? You don't mean physical revenge?
Well, emotional revenge. She's trying to hook up with Higgins and then hurt John by cheating on him.
And in fact, you did note that John O'Keefe was not privy to these text messages, right? Objection.
I'll allow that. Do you know that?
I do not, Your Honor, no.
He's not on the text.
And then again, there's so many times where like, it doesn't matter what answer he gives, Jackson can use it. No, John wasn't on this text chain is what he could have said. But, I don't know. John could have seen all these. Yeah. These seem like the text Karen Reed was going to show John O'Keefe. And if she did, that would be all the more reason maybe there was an altercation. So no matter what the answer is, it can be good for Alan Jackson. AC Lyle, it's so funny how many emails I've gotten recently about this. Like people being pulled in from their family members watching this case and then getting hooked because I get it. It's literally more unbelievable than any crime drama they would ever make. They would never make one like this.
I don't know if their accounts are synced at this point. I don't know if he's seen them. I don't know.
He's not. His phone. You know what his phone number is. He does got his phone, right?
We do have his device, yes.
Do you have any evidence that his account was somehow suddenly know that it's synced with Karen Reed's account?
Not from his device, no, but he could have seen the text message.
Okay, so there's no evidence that he was synced. His account was synced with anything, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
There's no evidence.
You were facing the other way. I didn't hear.
There's no evidence that his
By the
account.
way, that's a tactic of Yuri Bukhenik as well. So Jackson's walking around the courtroom as he does. He almost does like a closing argument when he's cross-examining a witness. And just so you know, lawyer training, they tell you to do that sometimes if the judge will allow it, of course, because then you want to be the star of cross, right? If you're direct examining a witness, you want the witness to be the star, so you want to stay back at the podium. But on cross, you either want to stand in direct eye shot of the jury or move around a little bit so that the jury is looking at you. You want their eyes to be drawn to you. Also, it is a little disrespectful to turn your back on somebody and still be talking to them, right? So I understand that. And I think that's what Yuri Bukhenik is trying to point out. Will the jury be like, okay, but he's not trying to disrespect you, he's just walking back to the podium? Or will the jury, if they like Bukhenik, be like, that's disrespectful, don't talk to him while your back is turned? I'll tell you, jurors, when they get in these situations, they are treated like the kings and queens of the courtroom. They are the most important people there, and they start feeling it sometimes. And so if they're thinking, sitting there like, you know what, that is disrespectful. I think that is possible. But if they're with Jackson, they're like, bro, come on, just answer the questions. Really interesting. Azam said, fruit of the poisonous tree. So those are all decisions for the judge, right? If the judge is going to throw out evidence or find that there's some kind of a violation of rights, that's a legal decision, judicial decision, not for the jury. Is that it? A little bit more? Yeah, a little bit more, I guess.
Was synced with anything.
Not his device that we have now.
And you don't have, as you sit here, you don't have any evidence whatsoever that he saw any of those text messages, correct?
We don't have that, but I do not know.
Okay. So as you sit here, my question.
I would have finished with, but John O'Keefe could have seen him. I would have finished with that if I was Jackson. And if he says yes, that's an evidence. If you're going with the conspiracy theory of some kind of fight and altercation, maybe John O'Keefe saw the text messages. Maybe John O'Keefe started the fight inside the house. I don't know. Maybe if the defense is going for that, any plausible maybe works for them. And Yuri Bukhenik created another one potentially. They didn't really get into it, so maybe it's not going to be something the defense goes with, but it's like, there's so much we don't know. Maybe that's what happened. Because you guys didn't do a search inside 34 Fairview. We could have found out so much more information. Something could have been proven in this case. Jackson keeps going over some of the very obvious things, obvious texts that are flirtatious, but again, it's like pulling teeth at certain times. Then this came off so much better than trial one to me. We are about to get into the third party culprit defense of the defense as Brian Higgins as the culprit using Yuri Bukhenik. The way Alan Jackson, first off, just like impeached him about the flirtation, sure. But what he does to use those texts and then the video at the waterfall, I thought was masterful. And the reason I'm saying it was masterful is not to glaze Alan Jackson, which fine, go ahead, roast me if you think that's what I'm doing. I feel like I've had a lot of good, a lot of bad to say about every single lawyer, right? I do like Jackson's vibe and his persona, right? I like how he works. I like his demeanor. Sometimes, though, I can understand you got to be careful that a jury might not like that. I totally understand that. And I would understand if a person said that. But the reason I think this was so masterful, same guy, Alan Jackson, same evidence-ish, first trial. I did not think it was effective at all coming out through Brian Higgins. The text messages, the video at the waterfall, I was like, I mean, what does that really show? What do those text messages really show? Okay, Karen Reed seemed just as interested in Brian Higgins as Brian Higgins wasn't Karen Reed. Did he really get ghosted? He came off as not really caring, which is why I'm thinking if I'm the defense, after what Alan Jackson does here, just like a Picasso, a Mona Lisa, I don't know if I'd call Higgins if I'm the defense. I get it. Destroying your phone on a military base is mind-boggling. And maybe I'm saying they don't need to call him because I already know that happened. This jury doesn't. But Higgins did not come off as creepy and desperate and rejected and potentially in a fighting mood based on the video at the waterfall. He didn't come off nearly as much of that when he was on the stand to me, just to me, putting my juror hat on, as he did through the lens of Yuri Bukhenik. And these texts and these videos, Alan Jackson paints this picture. This is where Yuri Bukhenik decides to get agreeable. It was a mistake because Alan Jackson was driving the bus, was using the strings as a puppeteer, putting this story together in a way like I have never thought about it in my mind. I know people have told me that. They say, this is what happened. This is how I see it. And I'm like, Okay, but I don't think that's how it came out in trial. I don't think that's how it came out in front of the jury. This time, that's exactly how I feel like it came out. That is exactly how I feel like Alan Jackson told the story that was Brian Higgins. So we're going to listen to some of that here.
By 11:32 p.m.
Oh, by the way, I think I might not have put the first time he said Karen Reed stopped talking to Higgins. She ghosted him. And last time, if you remember, Higgins quibbled with ghosted a little bit. Bukhenik didn't. He defined what ghosted means. He said, yes, he agreed. Maybe she did ghost him. And then Bukhenik says when Higgins texts Reed, well, they're in the same room, because he thought that was going to be good for him. But what does Alan Jackson do? He says, they are, aren't they? They're in the same room. Because I don't know, we've probably all done that before. Those of us who grew up with texting when we were in high school or even college, somebody's in the room, maybe you like them, you text them, see if they check the phone, see if they want to come talk, they want to go outside and hang, and they look down and they don't answer. How does that make you feel? It's like, what? That's how she's going to play me? We're in the same room? That's the vibe I got from Jackson.
She just not responded. Correct?
So the text message that she sent to Brian Higgins, the last time she sent text message was on the 23rd.
And he responded with several text messages to which she did not respond on January 23rd. Correct?
I believe she sent 2 and he said 3, I believe.
So the answer is yes. There was a text message that he sent to which she did not respond. Is that right? On the 23rd.
He was the last one to send a text message on the 23rd.
That was following multiple text messages back and forth between the two of them, spanning a couple of weeks. Correct?
Yes.
Then, on January 28th, 2022, Brian Higgins is at the Waterfall Bar and Grill after 11:30 p.m. Correct?
He was.
Karen Reed then walks into that same Waterfall Bar and Grill, accompanied by her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Correct?
They did.
Listen to what Alan Jackson, listen to the questions. The questions aren't evidence until the witness says yes or correct. He is taking the answer or taking the question and putting it into evidence by saying yes. Jackson is going down and telling the story of an embarrassed or scorned lover, whatever you want to say. I've also seen, I think Ben was it Ben? I can't remember. Somebody threw out the theory that why does it make sense for Higgins to take John O'Keefe's life as if now, and then pin it on Karen Reed as if now they're going to live happily ever after. Well, I don't think that's ever how something like this happens. If it's jealousy and you get in a fight and someone falls and dies or whatever, or it goes too far and they die or whatever, then you're going to try to cover it up because you don't want to get hit for it. I don't think the plan was now we can be together, right? I don't think he was trying to like poison John O'Keefe or think that Karen Reed wanted him to. That's not the motive, at least in my mind, the defense is trying to set up. And I don't think the defense is going to be able to prove that John O'Keefe was beat up inside of 34 Fairview. I don't think the defense is going to be able to prove that his body was carried out on the lawn. I don't think the defense is going to prove why did his phone stop moving. I don't think the defense is going to be able to prove that his head hit a weight bench or a stair or something else or a bat. I don't think the defense is going to be able to prove that. I don't, as we sit here. Now, I'll be open to see what they bring in their case in chief. I've watched trial 1. I've seen a lot of the records and what's going to be entered. I don't think the defense is going to be able to prove that. But is it a reasonable doubt so far? Absolutely. Has the state eliminated that by proving to me how a car hit John O'Keefe? What caused the break in his skull? What caused the injuries to his face? Or at least how they appeared? What caused the injuries to his arm? How nobody saw his body? The horrible evidence collection, has the state eliminated those reasonable doubts? To me, no way. And unless the state has proven the case and eliminated all the reasonable doubts, you should be not guilty right now. Once the state forces you into the guilty chair, eliminating all the reasonable doubts, then you should be a guilty vote. That's how it works. Everybody should be not guilty until the state forces you to be in the guilty chair.
Brian Higgins then texted Karen Reed, who's standing in the room. Well, correct?
Correct.
Karen Reed ignored that text, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Karen Reed did not respond to that text.
There's no text.
Brian Higgins, then, a little less than an hour later, texts John directly, "You coming here?" with 3 question marks, correct?
Correct. It's been stipulated.
That is an act.
So I mean, just track with him, right? We're texting, we kissed, we're flirty. Radio silence. It's like, what the heck? Then we're in the same room. I text again. Nothing. What the heck? Then an hour later, you text her boyfriend, "You coming here?" I don't know, right? Like, doesn't prove it happened to me, but sure doesn't look good. Which is why a big part of this, once we finish going through Jackson setting all this up, if I'm Hank Brennan, and I've talked about in the past, I was like, yeah, don't call Higgins, don't call Albert. You don't even need those people. I would reconsider. I think you have to call Brian Higgins. I think if you don't call Brian Higgins, the picture in the jury's mind is the picture painted by Alan Jackson. Is that the picture you really want them thinking about Brian Higgins? Let him come there and defend himself. And you guys tell me if you thought he looked just as bad the first trial, fine. I did not. Could he be investigated again and terminated? Theoretically, I would assume they can, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Accurate timeline of the events that we just talked about, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're also aware of a call. Your investigation revealed a call between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at 2:22 a.m. on the 29th, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did your investigation reveal a call between Brian Higgins and Brian Albert at 2:22 a.m.?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Okay.
They approach because Jackson really wants to get into the fact that they were calling each other the butt dials. Because if you remember, and I'll just kind of weave it in here. Should you call Brian Higgins if you're the defense? Well, the butt dials, the Canton, why'd you go to Canton at that point? Why'd you switch around cars? Why did nobody see your Jeep? Who were you calling? You said you didn't call anybody. Why'd you destroy your phone at a military base? That's very strange. Really good details the defense can get out. So that's the reward. The risk is he can explain, I wasn't mad. I was dating a couple other girls. I don't know, whatever. He could explain it in a way that if the jury likes him and finds him credible, they are not going to think he was jealous or wanted to fight John O'Keefe that night. That is a very big risk because I think the defense has set it up as good as you can. On the flip side, the Commonwealth, the reward of calling Brian Higgins is maybe the jury will like him. Maybe they won't think that he is capable of doing something like this. Maybe he'll be able to explain it in a way that doesn't sound as bad. And he'll be able to testify John O'Keefe never came. Oh, a tall guy with dark hair came into the house. The defense could get that in too. But maybe he'll explain John O'Keefe was not there that night. He'll give you some good details. Here's all the people there. Nothing nefarious. Nothing bad happened. We didn't cover anything up. He'll be able to say, I did nothing to John O'Keefe. That's the reward if you're the Commonwealth. I think you need it. Here's the risk. All the stuff the defense is going to cross him on. Pretty big guy, right? He looks like he can take somebody down. I wouldn't want to fight Brian Higgins with his training and experience. That's the risk. Will the jury think it's confirmed what they already think about him? Because this Alan Jackson painting has been painted before they see Brian Higgins, and first impressions are hard to change. So will they dig in? Will it be even worse? Will he have bad answers? Will he get impeached? All of those very real risks that existed and were the reason I think Hank Brennan planned to not call Brian Higgins in the first place. All of those risks are still there. But Hank Brennan's playing a dangerous game if he's not calling any of these people. Okay. Did you know that Albert destroyed his phone? No. Objection. Sustained. Strike it. Jury should disregard it. But Jackson asked a lot of questions. He didn't make a lot of headway on the Higgins-Albert connection at this time. Bukhenik's like, I never had a reason to get Higgins' phone. He's like, are you aware he made a call at 1:35 from Canton PD? No. All the stuff you knew about Higgins, you never thought it was worth it to go and investigate him a little bit. No, of course. Were you suspicious about the motives Higgins had against John O'Keefe? And after a long pause, he said, no, the evidence spoke for itself. I was not suspicious. And then Jackson has some more kind of summary questions here about this.
Have relative to John O'Keefe. Have about any possible motives Brian Higgins may have relative to John O'Keefe.
Suspicions of motives? Is that your question?
Correct.
No, the evidence spoke for itself. The honesty, cooperation of all the witnesses and corroborating, supporting facts spoke for themselves. So I was
That's great. Keep giving me that. You're speaking my language. All the honesty, integrity of the cooperating witnesses and all the corroborating facts. This is just too long of a trial because I'd love to put that quote up at closing argument. Yuri Bukhenik, lead investigator. At least the Commonwealth wants you to think that. Corroboration, consistency, and honesty of the witnesses. And then I go through every single impeachment, every single inconsistency, every single lie that I believe was told if I'm the defense lawyer.
was not suspicious of his motives. The conversation was documented over text message. Spoke for itself.
Supporting documentation, including the text message at 2:20 a.m., just minutes before John O'Keefe arrived at 34 Fairview from Brian Higgins, 12:20 a.m. That's one of the factors, correct?
That's one of the factors that is part of the entire investigation, yes.
One of the other factors is that John O'Keefe's body was found in the lawn at 34 Fairview, just feet from the front door, side door, and the garage door. Correct.
That is when Mr. O'Keefe was found, on the left side of the lawn, yes.
He's texting him from the location where his body ends up found, just feet from where Higgins was standing or sitting when he was texting the victim, John O'Keefe. Right after, he was ghosted in the same room. John O'Keefe's girlfriend, Higgins was interested in, who he got ghosted from. I mean, I just, comparing trials, this is extremely different from my point of view in how Alan Jackson made me see the picture from trial 1 to trial 2, which the jury doesn't have that comparison. But it was wild because Bukhenik was just so agreeable. I thought he could have quibbled about lots of things and he just didn't.
And one of the factors was you originally said that it appeared that it may be an incident involving a cocktail glass in the face. Initially, please.
Based on verbal reports, initially, that was a possibility. Again, it was before we spoke to...
before a lot of other things happened, but initially. That's what I'm asking.
Yes, initially, it was a possibility.
And when you saw John O'Keefe at the hospital, a big contusion above his right eye, correct?
That is not correct.
A big egg just above his right eye?
That is not correct.
You did not see that?
His eyelids were swollen, not above his eye. And it wasn't a contusion.
Two different paramedics said that they saw what they described as an egg above his right eye. Well, let me ask you differently. Did you speak to any of the paramedics?
So they go over like, what injuries did you actually see? Was it an egg? Was it a bruise? Was it a black eye? Whatever. We don't need to necessarily go into that. But we do get into the waterfall video. So I've seen some parts of the microdots thing that some people have sent me. I didn't really watch the whole thing. And it is very interesting, but I really want to watch it from the lens the jury watches it from. And I understand why you guys want to watch that. And I completely get it. And I do think it's incredibly interesting. But once again, something that I was kind of like last trial, whatever, the squaring off, they're never going to agree that they were in fighting stances and wrestling and squaring off. I didn't think, Higgins or Albert was ever going to agree to that. Well, guess what? Yuri Bukhenik was like, yeah, it looks like they're squaring off, messing around. Kind of looks like they're play fighting. Okay. And we're going to get into more of that. No taillight pieces were found from 6 to 9 a.m. Once they knew there was damage to the taillight, and Yuri Bukhenik himself said, yeah, I don't believe the first taillight piece was found until after the Lexus was in our custody. I mean, I know that's true based on the timeline, but I don't think they had a witness say that outright yet. Pretty interesting. All right. Let me answer some questions here. I haven't answered enough questions because we're going to go through the hand-to-hand combat and kind of the final piece to the Higgins third-party culprit evidence that the defense needs. We're coming up on an hour. It's Saturday morning. It's bright and early. We're hanging out. The energy is starting to rise. It may have been a bit of a slow start, but we're here. Please hit that like button. Make sure every single person watching this is subscribed so you don't miss any videos. If this video gets to 20,000 likes, let me just say it right now, we will drop me and my dad's reaction to week 3, the podcast, early on Sunday. Again, you will not have to wait till Monday to hear my dad's thoughts on the entire week. And by the way, if anybody misses the entire week, my dad and I now are kind of structuring it in a way where it's a full summary in basically an hour of the entire week. We're going to hit snippets, higher level view on every witness or most of the witnesses that happened that week. So everybody hit that like button if you haven't already. All right. Jessica, Peter, if you're the defense, are you calling Trooper Paul to show how the collision changed from flying to clipped? Yes. I do not think, now I am one that I want to see both sides, in case you haven't noticed, right? People have said stuff like, Peter, you got to get off the fence when it comes to these cops. It's like, when I'm telling you how each side can question a cop, like that's the point of what I'm doing. That's not, it's like people don't understand what the definition of that actually is. And when it comes to calling Trooper Paul, if I'm looking at it from both sides, okay, say I'm on the fence about it, I do not see how Trooper Paul can hurt you if you're the defense. Higgins, I do think that there's a risk to that. Proctor, don't really see how he can hurt you. Albert, I think they can hurt you. I think some of the Alberts can hurt the defense with what they can testify to if the jury believes them, feels bad for them. Here's more consistent testimony. You have to think about that too. If you hear 10 people say the same thing and you don't know them from Adam, you can say conspiracy all you want, but you can also say consistency all you want. So I try to see the risks from both sides. If you're a lawyer, what would you ask them? How would you use them? How would a jury look at it? And to me, I don't see a lot of risk with calling Trooper Paul if I'm the defense. Peter, did you see Karen Reed talking to AJ in the middle of questioning about identifying Proctor's notes? Have you experienced this? Feel like this would be highly annoying, distracting. It does happen. It is a little bit annoying, but some cases I do want my client, because she's not there. A lot of times the client's there or talk to these people, but she is fully invested, all in. They say she's very intelligent, very meticulous, and helps them in their preparation. So it's almost like another lawyer giving you tips as you're going. And again, that's why it's important to be patient and methodical and not to rush so you don't miss anything. Hi, Peter. Joined you for Karen Reed 1 and have been watching ever since. First super chat, 5:30 a.m. here in Vancouver. Question, what do you think a younger juror thinks of someone like Yuri Bukhenik? Scott, I don't know what your definition of younger is, but I heard some of the jurors are in their 30s. I happen to be in my 30s, late 30s, but still in my 30s. I think of this guy as completely losing all credibility. He's deciding to fight and be dishonest and quibble about stuff that doesn't matter. And I don't know why. And if you're willing to do it about stuff that doesn't matter, in my mind, you're willing to do it about stuff that does matter. Lisa, so excited I finally get to catch alive, Peter. It seems like over the last several days, the DA is spending more time trying to dispute the defense's case. Does it seem that way to you too? Thank you so much for all you do. Definitely when it comes to the Google searches and things like that. But I do feel like it happened more trial 1 than trial 2. And maybe that's not a fair comparison for me to make because there is plenty of it in trial 2 as well. And it's been more recently than earlier on. I agree with you there. Christine, do we know the breakdown of the jury age, gender, profession? I don't know exactly. I think it's split 9 men, 9 women. The ages I heard they skew younger. I don't know about profession. Dubra, Peter, can the defense bring in Proctor's previous testimony if he is unavailable to testify? They're bringing in some of it with Bukhenik. No, not really. He's not going to be considered unavailable. He's not going to be considered unavailable. If he really was where, I don't know, something horrible happened to him, then theoretically they could get him declared an unavailable witness and yes, read part of his prior testimony. Taylor, could an admission under oath by mass LEO admitting MP biases, abuse of authority, and or misconduct in the investigation affect previous cases in which his testimony led to a conviction? Maybe, but a lot of those findings were very specific to this case. Vicky, day 13, and we still haven't heard from the prosecution's theory of what happened to John. The jury heard AJ own the room today, but do they know what to focus on? That's a defense lawyer's job. Make sure they're focusing on that. Or if you're Brennan, make sure they're focusing on what you want them to focus on. All right, let's listen to this as they continue to go down this third-party culprit path.
Yes.
Did they describe A above his right eye?
Oh,
I'd have to see a
I didn't jump ahead. Let me jump ahead here. He also agrees that there was, oh, never mind. This is all in. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, we're going to listen to a lot of this.
You are former military
Yes.
and current law enforcement.
Yes.
Is hand-to-hand fighting taught in both military and paramilitary organizations like law enforcement?
I had hand-to-hand combat training in the Marine Corps. I had defensive tactics in law enforcement capacity in the Marine Corps, federal, local, and state academies.
Are you aware that Brian Albert is former military?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I am aware that Brian Albert is former military.
And Brian Albert was also a Boston police officer.
I am aware of that as well, yes.
Are you aware that Brian Higgins was former military and a combat veteran?
Now I am, yes.
And are you aware that Brian Higgins, at the time this was taken, this video was taken, was also a federal law enforcement agent?
I was aware, yes, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we can go ahead and run at 1635 to 1722 with the court's permission.
Okay.
If you can pause it. Can you describe for the jurors what you see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins doing in this footage?
Based on my understanding, it looks like he's giving him the Heimlich maneuver or
As if
abdominal thrust, I guess. I don't know what he's doing.
Brian Albert's got his hands around Brian Higgins, correct?
That's what it looks like from here. I have no idea what he's doing.
Could it be described as wrestling or grappling?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play it.
Wrestling or grappling? I do not think the admissions were as clean trial one when it came to this video. I really don't. LM said, Peter, how do you feel the jury looked at the waterfall video? I feel it tells the story of what happened, but not sure it was clear enough. Again, your guess is as good as mine, but just from my mind and perception, it told the story much better for the defense this time than it did trial one. I didn't take a lot from it trial one, honestly. I thought it was clunky. They didn't get a clean, agreement from the witness, but now you got Bukhenik giving you a clean witness. Yeah, you tell me what it tells us.
Thank you. If we take that down. During the course of reviewing this video, or the entirety of the video, not just the clips that you just reviewed, did you see where John O'Keefe was, generally speaking, relative to Brian Higgins and Brian Albert?
Throughout the entire time?
He wasn't standing still, I understand that, but generally, was he standing with them or was he closer to the bar in the back of the video?
I believe after Mr. O'Keefe arrived and embraced a few people with hugs, I guess I had to estimate most of the time he was on the other side of the table, which would be closest to the bar area.
And after you saw Mr. O'Keefe walk in and greet everybody with salutations, did you ever see him interacting with Brian Higgins and Brian Albert throughout the evening again on this video?
On this video, I did not know.
I'd like to play runtime, one more clip, Your Honor, runtime 1915 to 1957, about 45 or 50 seconds.
So Zumba flipped it. She said she felt more sympathetic for him this time. Wait. And more suspect first time, I think. Yeah. Interesting. Let me know, you guys, what you thought about the Higgins explanation, first trial versus second.
Can you pause it? Just to orient the jurors, can you see any individuals that you earlier described, Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed, any of those individuals in this clip as yet? Or do we need to play it a little further?
I would need you to play it a little bit further, please.
Is it possible, with the court's permission, to zoom in on the upper portion of the video?
Okay.
You can center that just a little bit toward the right. Other way. There we go. Thank you. And if we can go ahead and play that from 1915 to about 1957. Pause it. Do you recognize the three people center screen now?
I really can't make it out. I would have to be assuming, or
want you to assume.
guessing. I can't make it out
Let's
to
play-
identify each individual.
Let's play it forward if we can. One more time. At this point, go ahead and pause it. At this point, can you make out any individuals?
Yes.
Okay.
At this point, I can say that that looks like Brian Higgins in the middle of the three gentlemen.
What is he wearing?
It looks like a hooded sweatshirt.
Okay. And the person to his, sorry, let's do it from your perspective, or the juror's perspective. The person to the left of Brian Higgins
I believe that's Brian Albert.
and the person to the right of Brian Higgins.
To the right from my perspective.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I believe that's Chris Albert, but I'm not positive. I'm
Okay,
not
let's go ahead and
positive.
play it. Stop. Did you see Brian Higgins just do something?
I was not paying attention to his gesture. We have to replay that, please.
So this is one of the parts people were talking about when he's pointing over in John O'Keefe's area. I thought Jackson slowly, methodically went through it, but it's also so much easier when the witness is not arguing with literally every single thing you say. Netwoman, in your opinion, why does defense only refer to John O'Keefe as John O'Keefe, prosecution as Mr. O'Keefe, neither as officer? I don't know. That's just a decision, I guess, that they've made. It's definitely less words to just say I guess Officer O'Keefe, they could say. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer there. I did not know that, Lola. I did not. It's really sad. Thank you, Netwoman, for gifting 20 memberships. Tons of new members tonight, which is awesome. Or it's not tonight. This morning, I should say.
Does it appear he's looking a particular direction?
He is looking in a particular direction based on that frame, yes.
Is that toward the bar area?
It's in that direction. I don't know exactly where he's looking, whether he's looking at the bar, to the right of the bar. I can't tell from this.
Okay, okay. And John O'Keefe, you indicated earlier that John O'Keefe, that's where you saw him most of the video, toward the bar area, to the right of the bar.
If you scroll to push the screen to the right, I can tell you where Mr. O'Keefe is.
With court's permission.
Yes.
Do you see Mr. O'Keefe in that group of people?
I cannot make him out. Could you play the video? Maybe he is behind an individual.
Let's go back to, if with the court's permission, I'd like to go back to the full video. And let's play it from here.
So another thing about this, and Mama Wolf, everyone seems so convinced the Alberts and the McCains are so guilty they can't see there could be jurors on the panel to see it different. I've been trying really hard to look at it two different ways. That's a good way to get surprised in life, to just think there's no way somebody could see it other than the way or different than the way you see it. I always try to see it from different perspectives. And one of the things that this made me think of is there's no video, right? So he could be screaming, let's go outside or let's fight at Fairview right now, right? He could be saying that, but not really, because Karen Reed was there too. And Kokinas was there too. And some people that are not in the Albert and McCabe group were there, and none of them said he was screaming anything like that. Now, John, let's go. John, let's go. Make sure you come to the, was he setting up a fight or something? Maybe, but I don't think he was like screaming expletives at John O'Keefe like, we're definitely going to fight. I don't think there's evidence of that.
And pause it. Could you see what was happening with Brian Higgins?
He was gesturing to someone. I was trying to see Mr. O'Keefe. We were talking about Mr. O'Keefe, so I apologize.
Understood. With the court's permission, could I play the video one more time with it focused on the other side of the bar?
Okay.
Thank you. Last time.
Can you tell me who to focus on, please,
Yes.
so I'm not looking for the wrong person?
Sure. Pause it. Do you see John O'Keefe there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can you point to where he is for the jurors, please, on both televisions?
Mr. O'Keefe is right there wearing the sweatshirt, multi-tone gray sweatshirt with a hood on it and his hat.
And
this
the TV?
right there. He's appears to be at the bar paying the bill.
Okay. With this perspective, could we just go ahead and play that, the 30 or 45 seconds one more time? And then please focus on Mr. O'Keefe. Pause it. Do you see where Mr. O'Keefe is looking at this point?
Yes.
Where is he looking? What direction?
Well, from this vantage point, it looks like he's looking to the left on the screen at the individual he appears to be conversing with.
Okay, go ahead and play it. Pause it.
This is John O'Keefe right here.
And what about now?
Same individual.
Okay.
He's still engaged in conversation.
Pause it. And what about now?
He's taking a sip of beer
Right. Which direction is he looking?
in the same direction.
Okay. Go ahead and play it. And go ahead and pause it. We can go back out to the full screen. At this point, does it appear in the video that Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Chris Albert have all left the bar?
There's someone standing across the table from Mr. O'Keefe to his rear. I don't know who that is, so I can't testify to that. The others have left.
Given this perspective, now that we've seen both of them zoomed, do you have an opinion as to whether or not it appeared that Mr. Higgins was gesturing toward John O'Keefe just before he left the bar?
Given this perspective, he might have been. I don't know who he was gesturing at.
Okay.
That's better than a no, or that's better than a I just can't say. He might have been. V. Lee. Yeah, it's funny because so many people just like that I know in my life have been asking me questions about this. And there's a lot of small front lawns in Florida. And I'm like, it's about the size of your front lawn. And they're like, that many people walked right by a body that big? Even covered in snow, you would see and it would look weird.
We can have the lights up. Check that down. I want to change gears for a second. Let me ask one more series of questions, if I could, Sergeant. What we've just seen was literally Brian Albert, Brian Higgins leaving Waterfall to go to a different location. What was the location they were heading to, based on your investigation?
They were heading to 34 Ferry Road.
And shortly thereafter, who else followed to go to 34 Fairview?
I'm sorry, you said Chris Albert?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. Okay.
Nope.
Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, they went to 34 Fairview, and then Mr. O'Keefe also traveled there.
Thank you. I want to shift gears, if I could, to another video. Did you review certain ring videos, specifically relative to One Meadows, the outdoor ring video servicing the carport area?
Yes.
All right, before we switch gears to that, Pity Mom said there's an order barring them from referring to John O'Keefe as officer. I don't understand why. Like, that doesn't make, he was an officer. And they have referred to him as an officer, like an officer's dead in the lawn, so they can't title him as Officer John O'Keefe. I don't understand why. It's not like they're hiding the fact that he's an officer, but it doesn't surprise me with some of the other orders we've seen, right?
So I have reviewed those videos.
If we could, Your Honor. Just a moment.
All right, so now they're going to kind of get into the traverse, and did she back into it? Did she back into it hard enough to where it moved the car? Did it break the taillight? He says, I see the car move. You're not going to get me to agree it was a collision, and I definitely don't think it could have caused that damage, basically is what he said. Then, and I like how Jackson asked, through the course of your investigation as you sit here today, not at the time or that day or giving him any wiggle room, did you know X, Y, and Z? And then they own a dog, right? And then they got rid of it. Let's listen to a little bit of that.
I think I forgot where I left off. May I, Your Honor? Thank you. Sergeant, at some point during the course of your investigation, did you learn that the Albert...
Real quick, before we get to the end of it, or now we're kind of switching gears from Higgins, but what Jackson was able to do, creepy, whatever you want to call them. I don't know how creepy they were, but like obviously interested in your buddy's girlfriend on the sly. You kiss, you want it. You didn't think she would think you were hot, and she ghosts you, sets that up with the text messages. You immediately, you end up in the same place. You're texting her. She's not answering you. You're seeing this happen. She's with her boyfriend. That's your buddy. You're in a fighting mood, grappling, abdominal thrusting, whatever, wrestling, whatever you want to call it, squaring off. You leave with your buddy you were squaring off with and your cop buddies. You gesture to John O'Keefe to come. You text John O'Keefe to come. He ends up dead feet away from you hours later. Not even hours. Minutes later, according to the Commonwealth's theory. That's the picture Alan Jackson painted of the third-party culprit, Brian Higgins. Significantly clearer than the first trial. And better without all the McCabe and Albert BS, in my opinion. You've gotten the connections, and if the jury wants to side-eye and be like, is there a credibility issue because everybody knows everybody? You've gotten that. So much better, in my opinion. So much better. But you guys tell me if you agree or disagree. Here's what I want you to do. Put 1 dash a letter grade and 2 dash a letter grade with the explanation of Higgins as a third-party culprit. 1 is for trial 1 dash ABCDF, 2 ABCDF, and then I'll give you my grade in a little bit. And Christopher Wells doesn't think it was that big of a deal for the text chain, but when you get the whole story, it's tough to come back from. That's why we need the whole story, right?
Family had gotten rid of the dog named Chloe.
We learned that they no longer cared for the dog. I don't know if get rid of is accurate.
Well, they don't have it anymore, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Talk about semantics, right?
what would you call it?
Giving it up for adoption, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a pet owner.
What if they didn't give it up for adoption?
I'm sorry.
Not a pet guy.
What if they didn't give it up for adoption?
Rehomed, I guess.
Okay, so still
I would have asked him, where did you first hear that word, rehomed?
longer with him, right?
Correct. They no longer own the dog.
Okay, so they got rid of it. It's like you get rid of a car, right? Right?
You can get rid of a car, yeah.
Okay, and you can get rid of a dog. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, you can get rid of a dog, yes.
Okay, at some point,
Interesting thought by Decorated Dude.
during the course of your investigation, did you find out that the Albert family got rid of Chloe?
We learned that they no longer owned Chloe, yes.
Okay, when did you learn that?
This is sped up, by the way. And he's like, when did I learn? How do I answer this question? Priscilla, it's a good time to bring this up. How can Hank Brennan clean up on direct? So I'm going to focus on the Higgins part, okay? Because there's a lot to clean up, obviously, and he's gonna have to be patient as well, take a little time going through redirect. But with the Higgins stuff especially, what I would do is I would say, is Brian Higgins ever a suspect? No. Why? Let him explain why he wasn't. Did Brian Higgins on his phone, or it's probably not on his phone, but if Higgins is there, I'd be like, did you talk to any other girls? Did you like any other girls? You ever been rejected by a girl before? Did you kill their boyfriend? No. Okay. You can ask questions like that if you're Hank Brennan. You can also say from him, was there any witness that saw Brian Higgins out on the lawn when John O'Keefe was there at 12, whatever, based on the data? No. Okay. Was there any damage done to any of Brian Higgins's cars? No. If they looked at him. Problem with a lot of the cleanup is they probably didn't do the investigation they could have done to clear Brian Higgins. That's the pesky thing about not doing investigations. But you got to follow up. You got to explain why he wasn't a suspect, why they didn't look into him, why Karen Reed, why they felt all the evidence pointed toward Karen Reed, which has to be damage to the taillight, accident reconstructionist. It all points towards Karen Reed. None of it points toward Brian Higgins. That's how you have to clean up the Higgins part. Inquiring mind. Andrea Burkhart believes Yuri opened the door to assist on Jen McCabe testimony since Yuri says reports are accurate. He believes the reports. Jen McCabe said all the reports are wrong. Oh yeah, I said that before when he said, show me a report written by me or Proctor and it's gospel. We talked about that last video. Yeah, absolutely.
I cannot tell you exactly. I can tell you when we looked into it officially.
When did you look into it officially?
I traveled to the dog's home and assisted with identifying the dog and investigating that animal.
Okay. What documentation did you use to identify that animal?
It was veterinary records.
I don't stop you there. Veterinary records from whom? From the Albert family?
I did not get any veterinary records from the Albert family.
The veterinary records that you did get were veterinary records that had been utilized with the Albert name. Where were these veterinary records?
The veterinary records were with the vet that's caring for the dog and also owns the dog now.
Okay.
And those records also had been dated prior to when the dog was owned by the Alberts.
Okay.
He's trying to explain how he knows this is the right dog that he went and saw, and it's just as convoluted as ever. It's as convoluted as ever. That woman says, as a woman, this is her explanation. And what's interesting to me is so many people have all these different explanations that are plausible with the evidence we have and the evidence we don't have, but they're impossible to prove, but also seemingly impossible to eliminate as reasonable doubts because there's just not enough evidence from this horrible investigation.
So other than some veterinary records that, and by the way, the dog's not even named Chloe, correct?
The new owners renamed the dog, yes.
Cora?
That's correct. Yes.
And the new owners did not get that dog from Brian and Nicole Albert, did they?
No, they did not.
They got it from a separate person. Is that right?
That is correct.
Separate person named Riley?
That's her last name, yes.
And did this person Riley have any records showing purchase of Chloe or adoption of Chloe from the Alberts?
No.
So Rebecca, one of the weird things about this is theoretically former law enforcement was really pushing for guilty. And I think if you are actually law enforcement on this jury, you could go one of two ways. You could be like, yes, I've messed up before. I'm a cop too. But to say all these cops are in a conspiracy and lying, I just refuse to believe that, therefore guilty. Or I'm a cop. I know how this is done. This is not how it's done. No way you could ever convict. So I could kind of see why both sides could think a cop could be good for them. Really depends on the cop, right? There are good cops and there are bad cops.
I had a report about the newest owner of this animal, this dog, correct?
I documented my trip to the location and the steps
Did you write a report? I documented my trip. That's a no, right?
I took and services I provided in the investigation.
And in that report, you omitted the name of the new owner.
I'm not sure.
Did you omit the location of where you actually came in contact with this animal?
You're going to have to show me my report. I don't remember.
This is really interesting, virtual juror. Really interesting.
Okay, I apologize about that.
No problem.
The one slowing us down just a little bit. May I approach?
Yes.
Veterinary records.
There was also a time where they were arguing and Jackson said, "Can I approach?" He meant the witness, but I think Hank Brennan stood up to approach the bench and he's like, "Whoa, no, just the witness, false start." And it was really funny. Like, he's in his zone right now. And most good criminal defense attorneys, like my dad will tell you, his absolute favorite part of trial is cross-examination. My favorite part happens to be closing argument. And I really like jury selection. I like cross-examination a lot. But my dad, cross-examination is number one. I would like to ask Alan Jackson if that's his favorite. Yeah, I want to go through and look at all these. 1 C+, 2 A-. Never like the third party culprit, just handle reasonable. 100%. I 100% agree with you on the reasonable doubt is much better. But Third-party culprit definitely came out way better in my opinion. I think my grades would be pretty close to your. Actually, trial 1, I think my grade would be lower, like maybe D+.
That you supplied along with your report, correct?
Yes.
That you gathered?
I'm sorry, what was
That you
it?
gathered along while you were doing
Yes.
that approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Try to skip as much of this as I can.
Or the name of the new owner? Veterinary records, the 4 pages that you're.
Yes, it does.
Do any of those records, any of the veterinary records, the 4 pages that you're holding, even include the name Cora or the name of the new owner?
I browsed through it, and no, it does not appear that Cora or the new owner are included in any of these 4 pages.
May I approach?
So we'll just take your word for it, like everything else, right? Nothing is documented appropriately, no chain of custody. How can we really believe you? Yeah, Joe, I mean, there's just so many issues with the dog stuff, so many issues. And Joanne said, don't you agree Yuri is covering something about the dog? I heard the dog is deceased now. I don't know, but it sure doesn't sound good. If he's not covering something up, I think he's just like, there's a lot I don't know. I know this doesn't sound good, but I went and saw a dog. They told me it was Chloe, basically. What else can he do?
Yes.
You don't have any transfer records for Chloe, correct?
All the records that are provided by the owner.
I'm going to go through a series of questions, Sergeant. If you can answer it yes or no, that might make it go a little faster. You don't have any transfer records, correct?
I would know what it looks like. That's why it's even quicker me telling you that that's all the records that I have.
Okay.
This is the investigator trying to get the answers and investigate. He's like, I don't even know what the transfer records would look like. So how did you use this in your investigation, sir? Somebody told you this was Chloe, so you took it and you did it? And that's the problem for Jackson on this cross is there's just so much to cross on.
I want to answer my question. You
Okay.
don't have any transfer records.
I don't know what a transfer record would look like, so
the
I
answer
can't.
is no.
I don't know.
Okay. You don't have any rehoming records.
I don't know.
You don't have any purchase records.
I don't know.
The only records you do have are those 4 pages of veterinary records that don't have the name Cora and don't have the new owner's name. Correct?
That's correct.
You would agree, shifting gears for a second, that timely report writing obviously is an important aspect of any investigation, correct?
Like you can't say yes to that, brother? That timely report writing is important to an investigation? That has to be an immediate yes, or just for me again. For me, you lost your credibility. You lost your credibility if you can't say yes to that. And I feel like a lot of times he has said yes to proper police procedure, but he knows where this line of questioning is going with the delays and not only report writing, but also questioning witnesses.
It is important, but we can only write reports as feasibly and possibly we're capable of doing.
Yeah,
sometimes investigations are rapid, so you can't write a report.
yes, as fast as you possibly can. That's a fine answer. As fast as you possibly can. Obviously, if you do if you actually do the investigation at 2 a.m. and you write the report the next day at 10 a.m. because you had to sleep, we all get it. It's not what happened here, though. Come on.
You take notes, and it's some time goes by before you actually document the information on the official report. The information's there. It's gathered. It's maintained by the investigator. It's shared. It's acted on at times. But the official reports might take some time to write.
So obviously, if you're,
Sorry, I have to pause for this. I just know Papa Tragos assassinates on cross. He's actually made me feel bad for witness. Like he takes a man's soul. They walked out of the court, and that's why he's been accosted by, or I'm sorry, you guys haven't heard those stories yet. I recorded the podcast with them already, but wait for some stories he's had about officers finding him in the hallway after. I mean, it's yes. I'll just say yes to that.
like you said, things are fast moving in an investigation. It might be that you interview a witness on a Tuesday, you're super busy on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It might be Friday before you can sit down and draft a report about that interview that you did on Tuesday, correct?
Different circumstances dictate differently.
That would be completely normal.
Yes, it is.
But most of the time, it's best practices, and you're taught, and you teach your subordinates, that it's best practices to reduce to writing a memorialized report as close in time to the event in question that's being memorialized as you can, right? Perfect world.
In a perfect world, we'd write it as it's happening.
Are you aware that more than 20 official police reports in this case were not recorded for more than 100 days from the time that the event in question was done?
We were just like super busy because the investigation was really fast paced. It's like, what? The jalapenos, I am not sure what this means. I'm not sure what this question means.
It was being memorialized?
I did not know the exact date in delay.
Are you aware that there are 11 reports that are more than 300 days from the time of the event that was being memorialized?
I was not aware, no.
Are you aware that there are 3 reports that are more than 400 days from the time of the event that was being memorialized?
I am not aware, no.
Are you aware that there are 4 reports that are more than 500 days from the time?
500 days? Almost 2 years to write a report after you did something? But I mean, if you're like Nuttall, if you're like first responder Nuttall, maybe your memory got better over those 500 days and it were actually better off that you waited to write the report. But if you're like a normal person and your memory fades and it's not as good, this just can't be how we convict people. Just can't be.
Time of the event that's being memorialized?
I am not aware, no.
Are you aware that the longest delay of any report in this investigation was 581 days?
I am not aware of that, no.
You became aware early on in your investigation of 2 individuals named Ricky D'Antano and Heather Maxson, correct?
They are witnesses, yes.
Both Ricky D'Antano and Heather Maxson, you learned, were outside 34 Fairview in the early morning hours of January 29th, correct?
We did learn within our investigation at some point, yes.
And you learned, Sergeant, very early on in that investigation because you interviewed Ryan Nagel in February of 2022. It's just days after the event, correct?
I'm not sure.
All right, before we get into this, is one of the last points that he's really going to make, that it just really drives it home about how bad and delayed everything was. Let's run through some questions. Brian, if you were on the defense, would you call Higgins and Proctor? If the Commonwealth didn't, definitely Proctor. Higgins, I'd have to discuss it with the team. Like I'd have to go through the pros and cons because I think there are a lot of both. Gian, with Higgins' text and reading them, do you think defense will still call him? In my opinion, he's one of the bigger pieces to the case, not guilty all the way. We talked about some of the details you can still get out from Higgins, especially destroying the phone and the calls at Canton. But there's also a risk the jury just finds him likable or humble or no way that guy could do it. Or, sometimes it's easier to think of somebody as a villain when you've never met him or seen him before. I think there's a psyche to that, and you lose that if you call him. Which is, exactly the inverse of why Hank Brendan might want to call him. I understand the defense is trying to get in Proctor through this witness just in case Commonwealth doesn't call him, but aren't they saving the Commonwealth from having to call Proctor? They're not saving. I feel like they're baiting the Commonwealth, being like, this is your king. This is who you want to call. I'm saying this is your king from like Black Panther, by the way, if you don't know the quote. I don't actually mean this is their king. But like, this is really who you want to call? I think they're almost baiting him. Have you talked about the shoes? I have. We talked about it on Thursday's live, about as much as I can talk about it. If there was really a different sole of a shoe, I really think the defense would have brought it up. I think it's probably lighting or something. Freedom through faith. Would they be able to bring in the rest of Proctor's messages since he's already read some? So that's the difficult part. If you don't call Proctor, how do you get his messages in? They were able to get the ones in that he was on the group chat, but not to the other people. So unless the judge let them put in the evidence, which theoretically, if there's a stipulation of some sort, they could, I think you got to call him to get him in. Judge, second instruction to the jury about text. Is she implying all the info provided to the police not to be taken as fact? If so, should we also disregard the I hit him as a fact? That's a stipulation both sides agree to anytime there's a text being read. So it's been read more than 2 times. Sorry if I missed it. What is the basis that they are having Bukhenik read messages of Higgins and Reed that had nothing to do with him? He did the extraction. He saw the phone. They involve the They involve Miss Reed, and it's the effect that they have on the listener of Mr. Higgins, not necessarily for the truth of the matter asserted. And there's something that he used in his investigation, and they're impeaching the fact that he said those text messages were not flirtatious. I think they also may have been stipulated into evidence. Meg, can the defense prepare a timeline with all the times the witnesses have said to show how fluid it is? I visualize it partially covered with each element revealed through closing 11 p.m. in Australia. I love timelines. I think they should do timelines. But you have to be careful. There's just so many details. There's other questions coming about all this stuff, all the chat wants the defense to get into, and you realize just how much it is. BB, you don't think Higgins needs to explain that call at the CPD? I get it. But I just think, in my mind, Higgins came off way worse right now than he did the first trial. I'll just leave it there. Summertime. Maybe John O'Keefe saw the text at the bar when they got into the SUV. Didn't Higgins text John O'Keefe and ask if he was going to the Alberts? Yes. Peter, regarding all of Bev's comments, you're not going to make him read 60 pages. Is this something the defense would address with the judge at a sidebar or in chambers? I would ask for the judge to not say stuff like that. Is she going to do it? Maybe not. I'd put it on the record. I'd ask for that. Thanks for sharing your Saturday with us. Have you noticed how involved Karen Reed has been in Cross, passing notes to AJ and suggesting things? I haven't noticed it myself because I'm mostly listening, but that's not unusual in a case like this, especially if this is going to be their main witness. How do the citizens of Massachusetts fix this? Voting, writing letters to your representatives, protesting peacefully and appropriately and respectfully, letting people know that this is not okay. Karen Reed, impulse control, thoughts on the finger. So I did see clips of this. If this is real, if this is actually what she did, horrible move. You cannot be doing stuff like this. It jeopardizes and hurts your own case. It is not worth it to get one over. They are not worth it. That being said, I try to give grace to as many people as possible. Try to understand the position she and her family are in. How brutal, how stressful, how horrible to feel like you're wrongfully accused and they're pitting the world against you. And you would do anything you could to stop this. When Jen McCabe said she turned around in the car to speak to the two women in the backseat, I couldn't understand how she did that. If she was wearing a seatbelt, should this have been asked? I think that's probably a little too detailed personally. Sport fanatic. Why is the prosecutor allowed to say objection without stating what he's objecting to? Because the judge is forcing him to. That's the rule in this courtroom. How can he say one day that he had no evidence to get them inside the house, yet the next day he admits to Higgins texting John O'Keefe while inside the house? Is that text from Higgins not evidence? Yes, he did not feel like that was enough to get them to search inside the house. Thoughts on the defense calling Matt McCabe to show how he was texting after from the scene, watching the cops. Is there another way to get this in? I feel like they've got in the fact that they're all watching, they're all sharing stories, they're all comparing notes. You got to pick and choose how much you really want to get into that, especially all the other stuff that Matt McCabe can testify to that, people that have seen it that don't like him can call him a liar. The jury may see it as another consistent story. Don't you think Brian Higgins still has to testify about the phones being dumped at the Army base, visiting his best friend using FBI equipment to extract his text messages and the 220 call and video? Yes, I think those are all considerations for calling him, but there are also negatives. Pam, can the defense suggest in closing that the jury asked for the plexiglass be removed to look for dog bite holes? That's going to be something they're going to have to deal with the judge on. They can ask, yes. Alyssa, can AJ reference MSP training material on Cross to show they didn't follow protocol in this investigation? Yes. Dominic, how much can the defense get into Albert and Higgins hiding their phone calls, throwing away SIM card without calling them to the stand? Seems worth calling them for that alone. It's going to be hard to get into that if people like Yuri Bukhenik are going to be like, I didn't know that. I wasn't aware. It'll be tough to get into that. When the Commonwealth were counting the drinks Karen Reed had, it definitely did not add up to what they were saying. How do you think the jury viewed it? I think the jury viewed it as she had a lot to drink, including her own clips. Bubba, will the defense be able to get the MSP board label saying Proctor was the lead investigator title into evidence? I think they're going to get it into evidence a multitude of ways. This may be one of them. Mike from Providence, if the prosecution decides not to call Proctor or Higgins, do you think Brennan would still prep them for Jackson's questions? Absolutely, I do. And I would too if I was him. Is the defense allowed to call people who got punched by Brian Albert? I do not think that's going to be something that comes in evidence, no. AJ Cross, last question. Did you have time over the weekend to think about the location of the plastic pieces you found at 210? He will say no. Play video of the blower in the snow. Is that the same 50-foot area? No more questions. Wouldn't be the worst strategy. Gabriella. Wouldn't jurors feel something is missing if nobody calls Brian Albert and Brian Higgins? They're definitely not going to blame that on the defense. Heard the defense emphasize so much about Brian Albert not coming out of the house, the butt dials between them, cell phone destruction, and Brian Higgins at Sallyport. I think there are other ways they're going to be able to get some of that in. So let's wait. Jamie, Peter, thank you for your coverage of these trials while adding your legal knowledge to help some of us understand the case better. Would you be open to attending CrimeCon in September? It's in Denver this year. I think I'm going to be in Colorado in September already. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit it into my schedule. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Victoria S. Hey, Peter, do you think the jurors are going to take YB's word that everything was cool and done right and the defense can't bring in FBI expert? I don't know. It's possible. I think that's what the Commonwealth is hoping on. First week, I thought the witness order would screw up the defense flow, helicopter view of defense theory. This week, I feel like it's more clear for the jury than the first trial. Now we'll double down with ARCA. Thoughts? I think the defense is doing a great job with the new schedule. I do. But there's just still so much of the trial to happen. Judy V. Can Alan Jackson call EV1 everyone who was at the house and ask just one question? Did you see the body on the lawn when you left? Could it be that simple? I think it would open the door to a lot of questions for the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth can call them in their rebuttal case. So if you do that, you're opening up the door to have the Commonwealth ask them questions. Yeah, it would be really hard to limit the cross to just one question if they only ask one question on direct. But you definitely can limit it. I didn't hear Jackson ask about Brian Albert and Brian Higgins getting rid of their phones. Did I miss it? If not, will it come with another witness? He's asked some of it, but it hasn't necessarily come into evidence because of the answers, because his questions aren't evidence. I missed something. Are they referring to this guy as the lead investigator? Are they able to ask if Proctor was? Hit the like button. It costs you nothing. They're definitely asking if Proctor was. They're not actually calling him the lead investigator, but I just keep saying that because that's what they're trying to do. Oddly enough, I thought Yuri reading text was more sympathetic to Higgins than Higgins himself. Higgins still suspect. Reasonable doubt all day. Law and Lumber. If Trust Me, Bro was an investigation. What's up, Rob? 581 days, insane. I heard the jury had reactions. And that's the tough part about not being there, right? Joanne Roberts. Peter, how much more can Alan Jackson cross him on the stand? Thanks for all you do. Hit the like button, everybody. I still think he's got time to go into why this took forever. I think he can ask more about Brian Albert, potentially. I think he still has questions to ask. I would bet he has at least an hour left, maybe less. I also think he's going to ask him, what'd you do over the weekend? Stuff like that. That's always fun. Do you think the defense has someone watching these recaps by attorneys to get some different ideas? I'm not sure the reason why, but I will say now, I think that they probably are watching at least some recaps. Netwoman, American Standard Dog Training has a canine trainer with prosthetic arms with the same wounds as John O'Keefe. He walks through the wounds and expertly shows the teeth. Is Whitney binge watching his trial too? We need her on here too. She's not binge watching, but she is watching some clips, recaps, like TikTok stuff. And she's asking me, and I'm like, there's so much more to that. She's at a very surface level of the trial at this point. Thank you, Bill, for gifting 10 memberships. All right, let's listen to him explain how they're dealing with these witnesses. We probably have about 10 minutes left.
The exact date.
Obviously, as you just said, you became aware that Ricky D'Antonio and Heather Maxson were witnesses in your homicide investigation, important witnesses. You'd agree, correct?
They were witnesses.
You learned that they arrived at the house at 34 Fairview sometime after Karen Reed and John O'Keefe arrived and pulled up behind their parked SUV, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
Can you repeat that, please?
Sure. You learned that where they fit into the investigative puzzle.
Jackson is setting up why they are important witnesses here. Like, this is not just anybody. These are the people closest to witnessing the crime occurring in the crime scene. Because all the people inside the house saw nothing.
Is that they pulled up behind Karen Reed's SUV when Karen Reed and John O'Keefe arrived at 34 Fairview. They pulled up sometime after that and pulled up right behind them, correct?
That's not correct.
What is not correct about that?
They arrived simultaneously. Karen Reed took a right onto Fairview. They yielded to them and followed towards 34 Fairview, stopping at the driveway as Karen Reed proceeded further up.
Did you listen to the testimony?
UPC 123. Yeah, this is like the definition of, we don't even want the appearance of impropriety.
In this case, up to this point,
No.
there's a sequestration order, correct? correct?
Yes, yes,
Means you can't listen to the testimony of witnesses, eyewitnesses who are testifying in front of these jurors.
correct. Yes,
You don't know how witnesses have testified from that witness box in front of these jurors, correct?
I have no idea.
Okay. So your information is that they pulled up simultaneously, correct?
Is that what you just testified to?
That's my memory from what the the interview produced.
Josh, other people have already testified to it too. It makes no sense. It makes no sense why you would lie about that. And by the way, Jackson's like, oh, that's how you remember it? Okay. That's what your report says? Okay. Great. Great. Well, this jury will remember what happened at trial.
You certainly knew that they were eyewitnesses to the condition and the location of Miss Reed's SUV, correct?
Yes, yes, from their interviews, yes.
And you also are aware that they would have been in a position to see the occupants of Miss Reed's SUV as they were behind it and then pulled around it, correct?
Kind of important. Virtual juror, no. Nowhere near. Nowhere near.
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you become aware that they were in a position behind the SUV and as they pull around it, they could still see the SUV? Objection.
Sustained.
You knew what potential role they played in your investigation as eyewitnesses, correct? Generally?
When we interviewed them, when we learned of their existence, when we interviewed them, we collected information based on their recollection.
Okay. My question was, you're aware that they had a certain perspective as it relates to the SUV that night, early morning hours, right?
Based on their interviews, they had a perspective with a brake light being on constantly.
I'm not asking you what they said. I'm asking you if during the course of your investigation you learned that Ricky D'Antano and Heather Maxson had a perspective. They were eyewitnesses to certain things. As
Yes.
relative to the SUV, correct?
Yes.
You instructed your subordinate, Michael Proctor, to interview those witnesses in August of 2022, correct?
August of 2022, which still probably too long after this happened, 6 months later, but it would have been somewhat reasonable if that's when the interview actually happened.
I'm not sure when they were interviewed. I don't have a memory of instructing him to go interview them.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Election.
Fortunately, it does not. I will take.
Thank you, Sergeant. Does that refresh your recollection as to a conversation, or I'm sorry, a communication that you had with Michael Proctor?
Unfortunately, it does not. I will take the document at face value. I do not have a memory of having these communications, but I will take the document if it's authentic and it is true and accurate that it took place. But I don't have a memory of sending these text messages.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Also,
My name's misspelled in there. Is that from the extraction, or where is that from?
couldn't tell you. Wasn't me.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I can't take credit for that. Thanks. If your memory is not refreshed about that particular communication, do you remember in general communicating with Michael Proctor about interviewing Ricky D'Antano and Heather Maxson?
I do not know. I'm sorry.
Would that have been something that you would have found important relatively early on in the investigation? These are eyewitnesses. Let's get them interviewed.
Yes, it is. It is important to interview anyone that's an eyewitness. Sometimes it takes longer because. Are you listening? I'm sorry.
Thanks.
You asked the question. I just wanted to answer.
That might have been when he was talking to Karen Reed, because a bunch of people are talking about this. Becca, we've dug into this a few times on this episode. If you rewind a little bit, and on Thursday, there are reasons that they will and won't. I'm starting to believe they're not going to call him, which is wild.
I know the answers to my questions. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, did you hear what he said? I didn't catch that the first time. I know the answers to my own questions, Jackson said, when he's like, well, you're not even listening to me. He's like, I already knew the answer. Okay, Gallagher, right? I already know what's coming out. That's funny.
You asked the question. I just wanted to answer.
I know the answers to my questions. Go ahead.
Okay. So while we want to interview every eyewitness, sometimes an important fact is already detailed and witnessed by another witness. So in this situation, we had already interviewed one of the occupants, the one that was driving, the one that had the observed the events taking place. And we asked him if we were going to talk to the other two, would they have the same recollection, observations? Did they leave the vehicle to go in the house at all? Anything like that? Anything different? So that's
Okay, so it would be important, obviously, to interview witnesses in a timely manner.
In some instances, yes, yes.
Do you remember when Trooper Proctor actually interviewed Ricky D'Antano and, I'm sorry, when Michael Proctor interviewed Ricky D'Antano and Heather Baxton?
I do not have a memory of that, no. I'm sure a report would indicate when.
So, spoiler alert, just to save some time, September 2nd, 2023 is when he was actually interviewed. How wild is that? Tammy, thoughts on Higgins' statement he couldn't see OJO because of a mound of snow when the experts at the time, it would have been dusting. Again, these discrepancies, some jurors are going to pick some out, some might not. So it all depends on if the jurors pick it out. Peter probably means, did you see an appeals court ruled the buffer zone was too broad and sent it back to the lower court to redo? Yeah, somebody else posted that they came to an agreement. I didn't see that order, but good. Daffy Daff, did you see Court TV show Karen putting up her middle finger when the text messages were being read? Yes, and I commented on it earlier. Bad look, but I always try to give people grace because what she's going through is miserable and brutal. Rob, Karen does seem very involved. Not sure how I'd feel as a juror. Some jurors, I think, will think it's normal. Some might be like, again, just like facial expressions, and, they might not like it. So I don't know. You missed my first super chat. It's okay, though. Love your recaps. I'm so sorry. I'm doing my best. Okay, I'm doing my best. There's a lot to get through. We're way over time now. I gotta call it here. Brian, why didn't the defense mention the ripped back pocket of the jeans when it was not ripped at the bar video? I don't know. I always assume if it's important, they'll bring it up. Kurt Smith, how exactly did Bukhenik or any Commonwealth witness think dodging answers helps their case? All it does is hand the defense more time to dig into the details. I agree. And makes them lose credibility. If the defense calls Proctor, is he automatically a hostile witness so that they can cross him? I think he should be, but it will be up to the judge. Can you explain the flat frozen hat and when shown in court, the bill was perfectly curved? Do hats bounce back? Some of mine actually have, like when I put them in the wash in one of those like hat things and they straighten, it's not that hard to bend it back up, but I don't know. Allah, do you think they are going to call the snow plower in this trial? I thought he was great. So I don't know. The only reason I would think they might not is because the first jury did not find him credible. If you remember, at least some of them. Laura, any danger Bukhenik can also get canned? I'm sure he can. I'm sure he can get canned. I wouldn't expect it, though. How is the evidence entered without proper chain of custody? These are legal arguments they made at some point a long time ago in front of the judge that I didn't hear all those, so I don't know. Boston Breezy. Pita, is it normal that Bev sustains so quickly? Yeah, some judges are quick, and I have it sped up. Is it truly practical that she could distinguish Hank Brennan's reasoning so quickly? She seems to pause when the defense objects. Some judges are really quick. And sometimes the lawyers want to push for more. I know he's working, but seems AJ is enjoying this. I agree. I definitely felt that yesterday. Tammy, is there potential to get in stat happened to Higgins, Albert's phone through another witness? Only if that witness knows and investigated it. I'm not sure. Alan Jackson is criminally charming when he is in the zone. Maverick's favorite song to listen to get pumped up is The Danger Zone from Top Gun. Sally Port inverted video needs to be in. That is something he could cross on as well. We'll see. That got me because I didn't hear that the first time. It's like, I know the answers to my own questions. All right. That's all we got. Netwoman dropped 50 more memberships. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Tons of new members today. It was a long one, but it was Saturday, right? We had some time. This was fun. I loved doing this with you guys. Unusual, a little out of the ordinary, but it was so much fun. It was a great way to start my weekend. Hopefully yours too. KH, thank you for also gifting 20 memberships. So you guys are the best. I appreciate you so much. Make sure you hit that like button. Alicia Joe, to be honest, he lost me at the dictionary comment. I wasn't listening after that. I think that is possible for people. Kathy, do you think the lawyers involved in this case watch you or other YouTubers to get ideas on something they may have missed? I don't know the reason that they watch, but I do have a feeling that they do watch. Some have reached out in the past and said that they've enjoyed watching the recaps and they appreciate, helping people try to understand this in different ways. So I appreciate you guys so much. I appreciate them, all the work that they do, the lawyers on both sides of every case. hopefully they're doing things ethically and to the best of their ability. That's all we got. Hit the like button, subscribe, all those things. Till next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.